He was advised to cease by both the doctor and his wife. However, Ross Martin disregarded both of them and lost his life on July 3, 1981. For 40 years, Hollywood chose to remain mum on the subject of the true killer of television's greatest master of disguise. Here we have the shocking medical records that reveal the true story of the Wild Wild West star's death on that tennis court. Even his best friend Robert Conrad was unable to save him, and the corporation that had benefited financially from him refused to attend his funeral. Grodek, Poland was the site of Daniel Ross Martin's birth on March 22, 1920. Martin Rosenblatt was his full name. His family's identity as Polish Jews caused widespread suspicion in their hometown. Sarah Lerner was the housekeeper and Isaac Rosenblatt was the tinsmith. They were not alone among Jewish families in Eastern Europe in experiencing the increasing levels of anti-Semitism and insecurity. They made the difficult decision to uproot their lives and begin anew in America because they yearned for a better life. The time Martin came into this world, Grodek was in Poland. The boundaries shifted after WWI, and it is currently in what is now Ukraine. Things were never really predictable because the area was in a constant state of flux. He would also get a new name. After relocating to the United States, Martin Rosenblatt decided to adopt the name Ross Martin. Across the ocean they set sail when he was barely a baby. The family boarded the steamship New Rel in Danzig on August 29, 1920. Their nearly 3 weeks at sea finally ended on September 18 when they arrived at Ellis Island. As is common practice when filling out paperwork, immigration officials recorded his name as Marcus Rosenblatt. Millions of people seeking a fresh start made their way to Ellis Island. The Rosenblatt family was typical of those who went to steerage class. They were subject to rigorous legal and physical screenings before being allowed entry to the U.S. After gaining their freedom, they relocated to the Bronx, a neighborhood teeming with immigrants seeking a fresh start. As a child growing up in this world, Ross Martin picked up a number of languages before he picked up English. French, Spanish, and Italian were among the languages he picked up on occasion. He was trilingual at home, speaking Russian, Yiddish, and Polish. Being multilingual was one of his strongest suits. It served him well in his acting career. In his role as Artemis Gordon in Wild Wild West, he even spoke Russian at times. Because of this, his performances became more relatable. Despite the challenges of his working-class immigrant family, Martin excelled academically. He attended City College of New York, an excellent institution that supports many first-generation students. He was clearly one of the brightest students in his class because he received the grade of magna cum laude. After that, he attended George Washington University's National University School of Law and earned a Juris Doctor degree. He appeared to be well positioned for a secure career in law or business, but that wasn't his heart's desire. Instead of going into law school, he decided to be an actor. He was a member of the comedic duo Ross and West, which ran in the 1940s and featured Bernie West. They performed physical comedy and quick jokes in vaudeville and bars across upstate New York. On top of being punctual, people adored them. Martin had a natural gift for getting people to laugh. To this day, West still refers to him as a comedic genius. Unfortunately, their relationship didn't endure. While Martin sought additional acting roles, West began composing and directing. Whilst West was working on comedies such as All in the Family, many years later, Martin had already progressed to greater things. By 1953, he had made it to Broadway. When did he make his acting debut? It was featured in Hazel Flag, a musical parody that was inspired by the 1937 film Nothing Sacred. In a 190-performance run at the Mark Hellinger Theater, he portrayed Dr. Egelhofer. The show's music was composed by Jewel Stein, and Bob Hilliard was responsible for the lyrics. Because of his stage presence and ability to blend comedic and dramatic elements, Martin stood out. He performed alongside Thomas Mitchell and Helen Gallagher, among others. He demonstrated that he was more than simply a comic. Once Broadway opened doors for him, he quickly became a radio star. From the 1940s into the 1950s, Martin was a well-known voice on radio programs such as Dimension X and The Cavalcade of America. The Ross Martin Show was his vehicle for showcasing his remarkable range of accents and acting styles. His versatility as an actor was on full display in each episode. On occasion, his voiceover work was so seamless that the audience couldn't tell it was him. His versatility allowed him to rise to the top of the voice actress industry and eventually land a role in live TV anthologies. After that, Hollywood contacted him. The science fiction smash hit Conquest of Space, directed by George Pal and running from 1955 to 1957, was his debut film role. In an innovative film with profound themes of life and death, he portrayed the small role of Sergeant Andrei Fodor. Martin took a giant leap forward with the film, despite its lackluster box office performance. Just a short time later, in 1958, he appeared in yet another science fiction film, The Colossus of New York. This was the beginning of a nearly 30-year journey for him as his Hollywood career took off. Ross Martin's breakthrough came in 1959 when he played Adamo on Mr. Lucky, Blake Edwards' CBS show. Along with John Vivian's charismatic gambler, the astute Adamo served as a gunrunner. The show's thrilling and potentially risky setting, a mobile casino, made it all the more compelling. Along with Martin's sardonic wit, Adamo was an immediate standout. In the pilot, Lucky's drug smuggling scheme goes awry when the authorities discover a hidden cache of weapons on his boat. The deadpan tone with which he declared, "We are in trouble. I am the one responsible for the gun smuggling," hinted at the comedic potential of his character. When Martin wasn't on TV, he made changes to that part. He improvised his lines and even his masks as the performance progressed. One scene had him eavesdropping on mobster in the guise of a bartender. Cosmetics, which he created himself, also played a significant role in his career. Although critics praised the show's style and wit, it bombed with audiences and was canceled after only one season. Reviewers were nonetheless attentive. The TV Guide review lauded Martin's ability to convincingly portray multiple characters and gushed about his charming personality. His connection with director Blake Edwards, whom Mr. Lucky introduced him to, was crucial to his subsequent success, and this is the most crucial part. People were shocked by Martin's performance in Experiment in Terror, 1962. After 3 years. He portrayed the insane bank teller Garland Red Lynch, who stalks and terrorizes Lee Remick's character Kelly Sherwood. It was completely unlike the endearing Adamo in every respect. Because of Lynch's unsettling labored breathing, Martin turned to a childhood friend who suffered from asthma for comfort. A brutal scene involving an assault on a garage was shot in a single take because he insisted on performing all of the stunts himself. The final product was terrifying. Lynch choking her friend while Sherwood listens on the phone. This is one of the most terrifying parts. His breathing becomes more labored as time passes. Critical reception included comparisons to Anthony Perkins's performance as Norman Bates in the film Psycho. Lynch reportedly mastered the art of subtly presenting danger, according to the New York Times. The character later served as inspiration for Twin Peaks killer Bob, according to director David Lynch, who is unrelated to Martin. An unusually high accolade for a villain in film, Martin received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role. Almost rejected out of fear of being typecast, he ultimately accepted what would become a career-defining role. Martin proved in 1965's The Great Race that he could evoke both fear and humor in villains. A cunning nobility named Baron Rolf von Stupa was hatching a plot to seize power in the fictional kingdom of Carpia. Although Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon also star in Blake Edwards' film, Martin was the undisputed star of every scene he appeared in. Among the film's most enjoyable moments is a confrontation between his character and Leslie, played by Curtis. "I prefer a man's weapon. How are you with a saber?" he asks with a smirk, and then initiates a theatrical but fruitless sword battle. Martin knew just when to laugh. Even during the infamous 10-minute pie fight, a chaotic event with over 4,000 pies, he made up lines. Even his detractors adored him. He later joked, "I've never been so deliciously humiliated." He reportedly nailed every scene he was in, earning rave reviews for his deliciously suave performance. The record-breaking $12 million was spent on the production of the film, which was a comedy at the time. It was proof that Martin could hold his own with A-list Hollywood actors. From 1959 to 1965, Martin proved he could handle any task. And Damo was a charming con artist. Playing Garland Lynch was so hypnotic that I couldn't get any rest. As Baron von Stupa, the comic villain, he played brilliantly. Having the ability to go from hilarious to terrifying was a rare talent. He attributes his analytical approach to acting to his background in law and his multilingualism as a child. Beyond acting, he possessed a wide range of talents. He had a long history of making up characters, dating back to his early days in Mr. Lucky. In an interview, Blake Edwards remarked, "Ross had this magic that made you laugh and then scream, sometimes in the same scene." His ability to portray any character at any moment was one of his most remarkable qualities. The introduction of Ross Martin altered the definition of a friend on television. On The Wild Wild West, he portrayed Artemus Gordon. From 1965 to 1969, he was more than just James West's support staff. His knowledge of espionage was extensive, and he was also a master of technology and a top-tier cover artist for television. Even Robert Conrad, his co-star, would often be confused about who he was playing until the camera started rolling. That was how good he was at changing roles. The majority of Martin's masks were handmade in his dressing room. Always meticulous, he would craft elaborate costumes, wigs, and cosmetics from the ground up. They were completely unprepared for what was to come. He portrayed a stooped gravedigger with crooked teeth and a plastic hump in 1967's Night of the Vicious Valentine. Because he was so unlike anyone else on the team, they assumed he was just a supporting character. He was so skilled at playing different parts that he would alter not only his appearance but also his speech, movement, and habits. His linguistic abilities extended to 8 languages: German, English, Polish, Yiddish, Russian, French, Spanish, and Italian. Additionally, he had no trouble changing his accent. In Night of the Raven 1966, he donned a wax beard and a fake Parisian lilt to transform into an ostentatious French performer. Makeup artist Ken Chase said afterwards that Martin outdid most Hollywood effects teams when it came to changing Martin's appearance. While eating lunch, Martin would make elaborate disguises out of napkins. The component pushed his body as well. He wore burn makeup all over his body for 12 hours for his 1968 role as a burned-out arsonist in Night of the Returning Dead. The itching of the rubber didn't stop him from continuing to record. Many were reminded of the legendary silent film actor Lon Chaney Sr., the man of 1,000 faces, by his tireless devotion to his craft. His most remarkable talent was on display in 1967's Night of the Casual Killer. In a dramatic behind-the-scenes scene, he performed a violin solo to Chan's Nocturne in a fancy major. In the 1940s, Martin had honed his violin playing skills at Juilliard and was ready for concerts. Martin played live on set during filming of the scene. Everyone on board, even the grips, was overcome with emotion as they showered him with praise. An integral aspect of Artemus Gordon's espionage was his singing background, which was more than just a fun fact. While on the run from prison in Night of the Fugitive, 1966, he implanted a Morse code device into a harmonica and communicated with James West through it. Martin would play the violin off-screen as a way to relax after performing risky stunts. To relax during breaks, he would put on some Bach. He almost lost the part because of his classical training, which is strange. During his audition, producers felt he lacked the necessary authenticity for a Western. He concocted a scenario in which Gordon, to prove them wrong, played the fiddle to throw off a group of crooks. Because of it, he landed the role. In 1960, 8. Everything went wrong. Martin nearly died on August 17th from a heart attack that he had while filming Night of the Immediate Death. His left coronary artery was determined to be 95% blocked by the doctors. He couldn't appear on the show because he was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital. His outcomes remained stable regardless of the circumstances. Despite the show's generally low ratings, he received a significant Emmy nomination in 1969 for Outstanding Lead Actor. However, The Wild Wild West abruptly ended on March 12, 1969, right when he was becoming famous. Political pressure forced CBS to cancel the show despite its strong ratings. It peaked at #12 on the Nielsen charts. Congress started to crack down on violent TV shows after the deaths of Robert F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. Despite CBS airing the violent police drama, Mannix, The Wild Wild West was a scapegoat. Ross Martin performed exceptionally well when things went wrong. During 1968's Wild Wild West Season 4, he came dangerously close to death from a heart attack. Hollywood no longer had the same opinion of him, even though he recovered and returned to complete the show. The industry's insurers deemed him a high-risk individual, and major networks distanced themselves from him. Concerns about the prevalence of violent content on television led CBS to cancel the show in 1969. Following that, Martin encountered difficulties in securing lead parts. He could have boosted his career in 1970 when he was offered the lead role in the detective show Bang. The director's opinions were subsequently shifted after reviewing his medical records. Robert Forster, who was younger and less concerned about his health, was instead selected. Studio executives were forthright in their decision, according to Martin's agent, Harry Gold, who spoke with TV Guide in 1970, telling him, "We can't gamble on a star season." The casting process was rigorous, and even guest spots were challenging. In 1971's Suitable for Framing, Martin portrayed art critic Dale Kingston. He was asked to post a $250,000 bond by the producers as a backup in case his health forced them to postpone filming. The business refused to pay, so Martin ended up footing the bill. Despite receiving an Emmy nomination, his salary had significantly decreased for the role. When he was killing it on Wild Wild, he was making $150,000 every episode. A single guest appearance in 1970 only netted him $3,000. He had issues with more than just live action jobs. In 1972, he was cast by Hanna-Barbera to portray Dr. Paul Williams in C. After just 2 performances, the studio's insurance company stepped in and replaced Martin. He even went on to joke about it, saying, "I'm the only actor who got fired for having a heart." Regardless of how many things went wrong, he kept working. He received 87 small parts from 1982 and 1981. His roles as villains, eccentric, and shady masterminds brought him fame. Hollywood couldn't deny his talent, even though they were hesitant to cast him in leading roles. Famous episodes of Hawaii Five-0 and The Man from U.S. both featured him. Even in Love, American Style, he proved he could steal the show.